controls of.
Okay, sir. So we are going live in three, two, one. Please start. We are live.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Dr. Devin Gagar from One Alpha Med team, as it's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's session. Welcome to this webinar, topic named Innovator Semaglutide and the Current Market Search, What Clinicians Should Ask. As the burden of the diabetes continues to rise, with a significant proportion of patients also facing weight-related challenges, diabesity has become a critical clinical concern. In this evolving landscape, innovator semaglutide has transformed the way we approach glycemic control and weight management. With the current market surge, it becomes increasingly important to understand what truly differentiates therapies from manufacturing expertise and clinical evidence to real world experience. Today's discussion aims to bring these perspectives into focus and support more informed, evidence based clinical decisions. To take this forward, we are joined by an esteemed panel of experts, which is moderated by none other than Dr. Praveen Chandra Padma Shri, a leading Indian cardiologist and chairman of cardiology at Medanta MedCity, Gurgaon. Along with a panelist, Dr. Richa Chaturvedi, a senior endocrinologist at Indraprasth Apollo Hospital, New Delhi, and Gaurav Bhaduri, a gold medalist and consultant at Department of Diabetes and Endocrinology. Over to you, Dr. Praveen Chandra.
Yeah, good evening, all of you, and it is a pleasure to discuss some of the nitty-gritties of using semaglutide. And I, as a cardiologist, and we were having this discussion with Dr. Richa, how we integrate into this cardiac drug, diabetic drug. And but you will see now in the next 1 hour how and where it fits in and why we are so much interested in using semaglutide. We were using oral earlier when oral was available, and now injectables are available. So we are now, kind of co-prescribing, I must say, this drug with along with our diabetic colleagues and endocrinology colleagues. So let me take you through this quick set of. I can't move this. Yeah. So now I'm going to do a little bit of this. What is this? The peptide chemistry, and also there will be a lot of conversation around this on the evidence, on the experience, and of course the expertise of how to use it and when to use it. So basically, as we all, of course, know and we are well aware that diabetes and weight issues exist in India. So we have to take care of this problem, and every day we see and hear these kind of issues in our population. And as you know, that a lot of these people, 90% people with diabetes have issues with weight. So that is something which is very important. And now you can see that this drug is actually a peptide. Okay, so this is something very interesting, that this peptide has been developed and this is at the forefront of this metabolic care, reducing the huge disease burden. And of course, we are very much interested in knowing more about this. And of course, what are the earlier, the peptides which were being used. And one of them is, of course, insulin, which is being used as an injectable therapy. And no oral insulin is still being used, but this drug was, developed as an oral drug also. And this was developed, and it was available with us by the name of Rybelsus, which is oral semaglutide. And we had to give that the dose was giving, orally once in every day. And then we increased the dose from 3 to 7 to 14 systematically. But now the injectable is now available by the name of this Wegovy and Ozempic. So this is something very interesting, because this drug is actually used for two indications. One is for chronic weight management, and the other is for type 2 diabetes and in patients with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, heart failure, and prevention of cardiac events in patients with diabetics and increased weight. So here, the interesting aspect which has come up again, which is quite, common in India is that we have sometimes original biologics, which are, which is actually this one. And then we have start developing, getting biosimilars and synthetic copies. So here we have the biosimilar and the synthetic copies of this, which may not necessarily be the same. So this discussion will happen here, that whether they are same or they are similar, and what will be the impact on if we use it on our patients. So semaglutide as a molecule is now being copied, and many other brands are available. And of course, this is not so easy to start with, and we are going to discuss this. So my first question to our esteemed endocrinologist, Dr. Richa, that how does rDNA technology positively impact the final semaglutide end product? So what do you infer from the current information, and whether they are same or not?
Right. Thank you for the question. So RDA technology, that's a unique technology, and that improves precision, purity, scalability, and batch consistency. And these are the factors that translate into greater confidence in the semaglutide product. And it's RDA technology is a method which is highly controlled and is reproducible. So that enables large scale peptide production with assurance of molecular integrity. And how it is done? So there is the gene is cloned, and that is it is inserted into the plasmid, and the plasmid is inserted into the host cell, which in most cases is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, a yeast, and that acts as a mini factory and produces copies, spits out the copies, and these are then harvested and purified, and then it is sort of distilled, concentrated, and then is put into the devices, and or vials in case of generics. So semaglutide is a complex peptide, and recombinant DNA technology helps manufacture peptide backbone with precision. And this is very important. It matters because a molecule like semaglutide, clinical performance depends not just on just on having the sequence on the paper, but on producing a final product that is consistently correct, pure, stable, and reproducible. So for a peptide like semaglutide, recombinant technology is not merely a manufacturing convenience, it's a quality enabling technique. And it ensures that final product is consistent, able to deliver. And it's most importantly, it is reproducible. It sort of entails batch to batch consistency, and it has stability. It can be viable for a longer time. So that's very important. And so the rDNA technology is the technology with which original innovator molecule is produced. Whereas with generics, it's a hybrid technique. There is rDNA. They get the backbone with rDNA, but then that is sort of supplemented with SPPPS, solid peptide phase synthesis. So the whole rDNA technology, the whole process is a proprietary information. In every step is confidentially, that is not out in the open. So what impressive outcomes in cardiovascular disease, in chronic kidney disease we have seen is with that structure of original semaglutide. Whether generics will be able to match up to that, we don't know yet. So that technology, rDNA technology, is very important in providing a molecule with that kind of purity and scalability with batch to batch consistency. Thank you.
So you mean to say that the molecule looks similar but may not function similarly, right?
Yeah, because we don't have those kind of RCTs, we have bioequivalence and studies, we have small scale phase 3 clinical trials, but we don't have clinical outcome trials, cardiovascular outcome trials. We don't have CKD outcome trials. So we really don't know. All we know is it has been given regulatory approval, and because of its apparently similar structure. So the question is not that it is whether it is going to decrease HbA1c or decrease weight, whether it is going to cause equivalent decrease in complications. That is a question the answer to that we don't know.
Right. Okay. So let me move on. Dr. Gaurav has joined from Kolkata, Dr. Gaurav Bhaduri. And so, Dr. Gaurav, how do differences in manufacturing impact these clinical outcomes? We have been seeing so many drugs. So in this, what is your thought around this new molecule? Dr. Gaurav has joined or not joined?
So Dr. Gaurav doesn't seem to be there as of now. So we can skip this question. And he has just joined.
Okay. So if he has joined, so he can now start. Dr. Gaurav, can you start on this question?
Yes. So sorry for the delay because I didn't receive the joining link. So thank you. So the question probably you have asked is, how do differences in manufacturing impact the clinical outcomes? So very frankly, we don't exactly know that what differences in the manufacturing process affects the clinical outcome part, because we don't have data comparing one side the innovator brand and on other side different other generic or biosimilar products of semaglutide, and then evaluating their clinical outcomes. But what we know of now, and this is a fantastic paper by Morton Hatch, where they compared 16 samples of injectable semaglutide copies and about 8 samples of oral semaglutide, and again 2 samples of liraglutide as well, again injectable. And what they found was that there was, different impurities, and obviously different impurities pattern. And along with that, there were high molecular weight protein aggregates, there were greater fibrillations, and there were trace metals also they were found, and there were anions they were finding, which was not there in the innovator molecule. So there was a lot of differences in those products than what we see in the innovator. And this might affect the final clinical efficacy and the safety endpoints when they're put into practical use. So we would need more data on these, agents before we can say that they are quite safe and similarly clinically efficacious for our patients.
Right. So also you can dwell on this one. This is the
Yes. So there are impurities I discussed on this point. So in this particular study, again, this slide is from that particular study. So they found that the impurities were there, and there were newer impurities, and the impurity pattern was completely different from that of the innovator. Then there were high molecular weight protein aggregates, there were higher degree of oxidation, and this would ultimately lead these molecules to be more unstable. And that is what they have seen. And in the oral, remember what happens is that the oral, the snack component is again very important. So if here in this particular example, if you see, if you have a 5 milligram of oral semaglutide with 300 milligram of snack, and then you compare it with the 5 milligram of oral semaglutide, again the same molecule at same dose, but now the snack is about 150 milligram, you see the semaglutide plasma concentration is completely different, or rather much lower than that of the innovator. Now, again, if we use a 10 milligram of oral semaglutide with a snack which is 300 versus a snack which is 600. So if you drop the amount of snack, or you increase the amount of snack, both ways you will lead up ending with much lower plasma concentration of the actual drug. So even not only the molecule itself, but even the snack is very important in actually determining how much of the drug actually reaches the body and is able to achieve the targeted plasma concentration.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gaurav, for clarifying these points. So now the next question then comes up is, with this background, that there is an expectation or there is a suspicion, or we don't know exactly what's happening. So in terms of the innovator semaglutide peptide production and of course the synthetic copies, biosimilars. So Dr. Richa, where do we stand in terms of clinical trial evidence with these versus with these semaglutide copies?
So innovator semaglutide is actually far ahead in clinical evidence, and it is a large, time-honored and published database across various situations, various disease conditions like diabetes, obesity, CV risk reduction, and kidney disease. And whereas semaglutide copies, they have a smaller evidence base, and it's mainly centered on bioequivalence studies and limited phase 3 clinical studies. And there are no long-term trials on clinical outcomes. So semaglutide copies are, they are supported by much narrower data sets, and which is bioequivalence and compatibility and smaller clinical studies. So and the innovator has outcome-driven evidence, and copies mainly have bridging evidence. So even a well-manufactured molecule that needs stronger clinical validation. And we have semaglutide trials in various conditions. For example, Essence is going on with the MASLD, and it's a long-term trial, and we have 1 year data which shows 30% improvement in MASH and fibrosis in Essence, especially in hepatitis. And Select and Flow. Select was a trial in people without diabetes and with obesity, and where they tried to see the effect of 2.4 milligram of semaglutide on cardiovascular outcomes, 3P MACE, and there was 20% risk reduction in 3P MACE as a primary outcome. Flow was a kidney outcome trial, and where they looked at effect of Ozempic, which is diabetes dosing of semaglutide, on primary outcome, which consisted of renal failure in terms of RRT, dialysis, transplantation, and GFR less than 15, and GFR reduction by 50%. And renal or cardiovascular death, and it resulted in around 24% reduction in the primary outcome. And we have seen in reduction in weight and HbA1c, and there are other trials, CV outcome trials like Sustain 6 and like Soul. So in Sustain 6 there was 6% risk reduction in 3P MACE. In Soul, there was 14% risk reduction. In Select, with highest dose 2.4 milligram, there was 20% risk reduction. So that's and we have heart failure outcomes. Although I personally feel we need harder outcome data in case of heart failure. So we have positive effect on quality of life and physical limitation, 6-minute walk distance, but I think with time we will have more data in heart failure. And so this kind of data, I mean, this is huge data. We have this is the only GLP-1 analogs which has this kind of data. Tirzepatide does not have it, and genetics you leave alone. I mean, they don't have any such data. So I would say semaglutide innovator semaglutide is in a different league altogether. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a very nice, good points. However, at the same time, you also see that phase 3 trials have been done with these copies, and also many times we have seen these biosimilars or copies of these agents have shown sometimes reasonably similar outcomes. So, and nevertheless, at this time, the maximum evidence we have is with this, and we are talking this on the premise that probably they are not exactly making the same, effects as we are seeing with this innovator peptide molecule, which is the semaglutide. So with
And
this,
another thing, Dr.
yeah.
Bhatturi pointed out, said there were many impurities in that study. So many impurities in forms of extra chromium, iron, and nitrates that was found in generic molecules. So how that is going to translate in clinical outcomes, we will see. We will see with time.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Gaurav, do synthetic copies come with the same regulatory approvals as with innovator semaglutide? That is another question, because we are saying that the biosimilar, their approvals have also come up. So, what is the status of that? Like, is it the same, a similar approval, or a different approval?
Yeah, so in one short answer, they don't have yet got the similar kind of approval. So if we look at this once weekly Ozempic, so you see its a primary indication is obviously the first line for type 2 diabetes as an adjunct to diet and exercise for better glycemic improvement in adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus. But additionally, they also have this indication to reduce the risk of MACE in adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus with established cardiovascular disease, again, secondary protection. And then because of the FLOW trial, so it has also got the indication to reduce the risk of sustained EGFR decline, end-stage kidney disease, and CV death in adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus with chronic kidney disease. So, a vast basket of better glucose control, cardiovascular protection in, secondary protection subset, and along with that, renal protection in patients with chronic kidney disease to slowing down the progression. For Wegovy, we have primarily, again, for weight management in adults to, along with the reduced calorie diet and increased physical activity for weight management. But it again, because of the SELECT trial, to reduce the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events in adults with obesity and overweight with established cardiovascular disease, against secondary protection. And this approval is awaited yet, but in the US, if we look, US FDA has given accelerated approval for the because of the Essence trial, because the 72-week data is now available. The 240-week, the second phase data is yet to be available. So because of the initial 72-week data, as Madam has already told us, that there was about 37% improvement in the fibrosis and a 63% improvement in MASH, the US FDA has given an accelerated approval, but again, this is a temporary approval pending the 240-week results. But in India, we are yet to receive an approval for Wegovy for metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis with moderate to advanced fibrosis. But for Ribulsus, we have this, primary approval is again to improve the glycemic control in adults with type 2 diabetes as an adjunct to diet and exercise. But additionally, and this is very interesting because of the SOUL study, so they have given the approval to reduce the risk of MACE in adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus who are at a high risk for this event. So this is the first agent which has got a primary protection, approval for cardiovascular events. So this is where we stand with the innovator molecules. But if we go ahead and look at the copies, so mainly the strength of 0.25, 2.51, and 2 milligram. So those are approved for diabetes management as an adjunct to diet and exercise, and the 1.7 and 2.4 milligram dosing has been approved for weight management as an adjunct to calorie restricted diet and physical activity. But they do not possess the on-label indications for the classic long-term benefits, the organ protection part of cardiovascular disease, whether primary or secondary, or the CKD, or even the MASH. Again, the MASH is again not approved here in India as of now, but in the US, they have already received accelerated approval.
Thank you. No, Gaurav, I think it is clear that the regulatory approvals are not similar. However, one thing is very, fascinating, interesting that I have not seen, maybe, I am unaware, that I have not seen any oral semaglutide available, any copy of that. Well, that is something very intriguing. Is that correct information?
No,
So
it
oral
is
has
available.
already come into the market.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is available. It is
it's
available. Torrent has it, and
Oh,
I think
okay.
there's one more company who's got it. But
Mm.
they have not used snack. I am really curious. How that is how that is done, and what kind of effect it is going to have. But we have by
So,
Torrent.
so they have, madam, a different, molecular structure of the snack. So it's like the
Mm.
snack along with the C10 molecule attached, so that they are
Mm.
saying will have a better absorption for this molecule and improving the bioavailability. But again, we don't know about what exact impact that's going to create, that additional C10 chain, because even a little bit increasing or lowering the dose of the snack, we have shown that it creates a huge amount of difference in the plasma concentration. So getting a different structure for the snack, what that's going to do is again a completely unknown domain.
Right. Okay. So basically, that clarifies many issues. So now, about the, because this drug needs cold chain. And so, what do you think is the practical issues around it, Dr. Richa?
It's a very practical issue. And in a country like India, cold chain integrity and device convenience, they are critical determinants of real world effectiveness. So even a highly efficacious molecule will underperform if storage conditions are compromised or if the delivery device is not up to the mark. So they are like clinical variables, and recommended storage is typically 2 to 8 degrees centigrade before use, with limited stability at room temperature thereafter. And here I find it, I am curious. There are certain reusable pens available which can be used up to 3 months. So I would be really interested to see about the stability of that molecule. So in India, we have high ambient temperature, and there are long transport distances, and there are variable pharmacy storage standards, and there are patient level storage issues. And especially with a weekly drug, if one drug is not has not performed well, there will be implications. So every single dose carries more weight so both storage and device reliability, they are even more critical. And as they say, degraded peptide is not the same drug. And in India, last mile handling can decide first line outcomes. So these are very important issues, and these are not only logistic issues. As I said, they are clinical variables. How it's not only the molecular structure, the whole system. How the molecule is produced, how it is transported, how it is stored. So everything is going to be very important, and with time we will see how impactful these are on clinical outcomes. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So, is there any way to, figure out whether the cold chain was maintained or not maintained? Do you have any such, marker or indicator in these, devices when they come to you?
So there may be gross markers that if it is not looking fine, it's not transparent, we will suspect something. But otherwise, it will look absolutely, if it is looking absolutely similar, but the cold chain has not been followed, and if the peptide is degraded, we wouldn't know. We would know about the clinical outcomes, how the results are being achieved. So it's a difficult thing. So only the clinical outcomes will tell us whether there was everything was followed to the hilt or not. So difficult. That's an again interesting scenario. We will see how generics have really held up to that.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, I'm asking this question because we had a device in our cath labs which had to contain have a cold chain. So there was actually a marker which was packed with every device, and that used to tell whether the cold chain broke any time or not. So That was something interesting. Anyway, so
It's
now
not. I don't think it's there with these
it is not.
genetic.
It is not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not.
So let's move on, and so let us look at the real world experience with this, the innovator semaglutide. Dr. Gaurav, what is your thoughts on this aspect?
Yeah, so see what we have known from a very long time, because this molecule has been there with global regulatory approvals as long back as to 2017, and more than about 50 phase 3 clinical trials have already been conducted, and around 50 million persons years of exposure, and available in more than 75 plus countries. So huge amount. And even if we look at India, so the oral molecule has been available almost 4 years now, and the injectable is there from probably in the month of July onwards. And more than 3,500 participants were actually from India in the 60,000 patients that has been, participants across the globe. And about more than 4 lakh Indian users are there on either oral or injectable semaglutide as of now. And again, available in oral formulation, injectable, and injectable again we have for diabetes and obesity separately. So huge, clinical evidence we have. Even the RCTs included Indian patients in a substantial number, and we have been using this drug in our practice. So I probably have oral semaglutide of more than 1,200 active patients on oral semaglutide. So it has been a very reasonably good journey. Yes, the GI side effects is one of the barriers, and cost is another. But in patients who are able to tolerate it and able to continue it without a cost barrier, so the results have really been great in these patients.
Right. So the real world experience has been positive, and we have seen positive responses, especially in our cardiac patients also. So now the next question comes is, with so many semaglutides copies are available. So where do you think, would you like to, if for example, if patient is already on an innovator semaglutide, would you like to shift to a, newer copy or a synthetic agent or a new, drug? What are those thoughts at this time? Where will you do that, and why would you do that?
Okay, let me take that
Switching
first.
from, yeah.
So in most cases, I would say no. There is no intrinsic clinical need to switch a stable patient to innovator semaglutide to a copy, especially if a patient is doing well on innovator semaglutide. I don't see a clinical reason to switch purely for pharmacological reasons. And switching is sometimes done for economic and logistical issues, but not on evidence-based clinical superiority. Rather than switching, I would say new prescription generation happens, and that's happening. We are doing that. So, all those patients who couldn't take innovator semaglutide because of the cost concern, so there is now possibility of prescribing semaglutide. So I would say the semaglutide prescription is now moving from tertiary care to primary care. So there is no switching. I don't think I'm going to do. Unless there is a pressing reason, financial reason. But yes, new prescription generation will be there in those people where the financial constraints are there. So and yes, switching study, that's a different ball game altogether. You have to one demonstrates like it was. I remember it was done. Basalog was given a biosimilar status, as compared to the innovator insulin, and they did the proper switching, and where dose to dose switching from innovator molecule. So those I'm not aware. If it's not, I don't think it's done with a generic molecule. So switching, I don't think I'm going to do. But yes, new prescription generation will be there.
So
Yes,
so do you think there is a difference in terms of cost of these drugs? Is there any significant difference?
Yes,
There
so
is.
yes, a significant difference in both the injectable and the oral. So cost is the probably, as Madam said, is the probably the only reason where we can think about considering a copy of semaglutide. Otherwise, in patients who are already on, so what we do is, sir, we discuss about the cost at the very beginning because these medications are going to continue for a long time. And only those patients who are agreeing with the cost burden for a significantly long duration of time, there only we initiate this, this molecule. We have done it. So I again also think that there is no need to switch a patient who is already doing well. And specifically, you shouldn't switch in a patient where you have given this molecule for maybe a secondary protection, or maybe even an oral molecule for a primary protection of the heart. You shouldn't be switching if you're using this for CKD, patients to slow down the progression of EGFR. You shouldn't be switching because these copies don't have these approvals as of now because the only data exist with the innovator brand.
Yeah, I mean, so this is very clear that, there is no, of course, there will never be any data on this. But because, we had these kind of situations in, our practice for a long time, especially when we started with oral antiplatelets, when we started with, injectable antiplatelets, when they came like, tirofiban, eptifibatide, epsiximab, all these agents, similar kind of questions happened. But certainly, over a period of time, things evolve and we come to know what exactly has to be done. So now we'll move to this question of why are the synthetic copies not same as the innovator semaglutide? Of course, the innovator is a rDNA-based therapy which is available, and the others are synthetic and chemical copies of that. So that is one basic, like, premise on which I can, base this statement. Otherwise, I mean, they look the same. And this is now the dosing schedule, which is already approved for these agents, which we have discussed already. So with this, I think we are almost at this end of this, session, and now we can have some question and answers and have some open discussion based on the, the discussions we had already. Because this is a, interesting thing that when we have something which comes up as a very, like a game-changing therapy, and then suddenly all this commotion is happening. So these questions need to be answered, and also the clinicians want to know about this. So let us have some more questions from the, from the audience or from who, from this group. Is there any questions coming up? I don't see any. Yeah.
One second, we are fetching out the questions.
Yeah. So what is the, by the time he's fetching the questions, I'm a little curious on this because I didn't pay too much attention on the cost differences of these. So like, is it like 10%, 20%, 30%, 50% cost difference?
50%.
About 50%.
About 50%. Okay, okay.
That is huge. I mean, in a
And
way, it
about
is good.
60% for the higher dose, so that's the Wegovy. So the difference is about 60%.
About 60%. Okay.
More than that, actually, even for the highest dose, if you compare. So it's actually more than 60%, about 60 to 70%.
Yeah, let me, tell you my frank opinion on what exactly I did up till now. You know what I did? I didn't start any of the new ones because I was not very sure what's happening. Is it like, they have started the marketing? Because also this happened with many drugs, that the same drug manufactured by the same company is being marketed by 10, 20 people, 10, 20 companies in India. So then I said, what is the fun in doing all this? So then I didn't, embarked on this journey up till now, unless until I'm sure that yes, it is the same, it is as effective, it is made the same way. And now we see so many questions answered today.
Yeah,
So I think it was reasonable not to start from, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, especially in your case. I mean, there are no CV outcome trials with the generics and with the semaglutide copies, and you are prescribing mainly for that reason. So for you, there is not enough ground to.
No. We have burnt our fingers, Dr. Richa. We have burnt our fingers earlier very, very badly. And
Dr.
people
Praveen.
died. People died at that time when clopidogrel was launched. Okay. We had the initial Plavix. Okay. And then these clopidogrels came, they had a lot of impurities, etc. And people switched over, patients were dying after stent implantation, and then so they did do the changes, they improved the products, etc. after some time, but then the initial phase was quite murky and quite disturbing. So that is why I'm taking my time to think about it.
Right,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so we have a first question.
Hmm.
The question is, does synthetic semaglutide have more injection site reaction as seen have their phase 3 studies?
So Dr. Gaurav or Dr. Richa can answer this better. Yeah.
Yeah, so it will vary because because you see these are all synthetic products, right? So they are not through the recombinant DNA, mechanism. Because in India, if you have an amino acid sequence which is less than 40, so you are technically allowed to go in for a synthetic production versus a recombinant DNA production, and that's what exactly happened. That's why you are getting all the synthetic variants of semaglutide instead of the recombinant DNA technology being used over here. Regarding the injection site reaction, so this has to be done by the company, compare it with the innovator semaglutide, and some of the companies have indeed done it, and those that I have seen, they don't show increased injection site reaction happening in comparison to the innovator. That is what their data suggest, but all the companies that's available in the market has not done those studies. Okay, so many of the companies have asked about immunogenicity studies results, so they haven't been yet able to come up with that. So you for any peptide, you need PK data, you need PD data, and you need immunogenicity data. So these are the basic three premises on which you build, and then you need to have the phase 3 trials showing first the efficacy and then the safety or as well, and then you also do those studies for CKD and CVD patients on a long-term basis. And if those happens, probably they will get those approvals. But unfortunately, they haven't done. But the injection site reactions, the ones that I have seen, the data are comparable, but some of the companies don't have this data as of yet.
Yeah, I think with time we will be able to look at that aspect more clearly. And for I would be particularly interested in immunogenicity reactions. The innovator semaglutide has 94% homology to the native molecule, and with the kind of impurities that we have seen that generics harbor. So, what kind of antibody generation they are going to have? And what kind of immunogenicity is going to be there, we will see with time.
Okay. So that is a questionable arena right now. We don't know what's going to happen, what kind of reactions, like immunogenicity, etc. So if there are questions, maybe we can.
Yeah, so one more question. Can you share your real-world experience on Wegovy, Ozempic, or Rybelsus for weight loss, HbA1c, or others?
So let me start with my experience. We started using a lot of Rybelsus in our cardiac patients who were obese and who were diabetics. And of course, then we switched over to, more patients when injectables came in. And let me tell you, my experience is very, funny that when I started Rybelsus, patients were not so happy. But when I started injectable, they're happy because they have to take only once in a week. So once in a week is, although I thought that they will be not very happy with injectables, but generally they are happy with this injectable thing. And the Rybelsus usage has certainly gone down now. 90% of my patients are just taking injectables. Very few still carry on. They say, "Oh, I'm fine." But I have also switched many from Rybelsus to injectables. So that has also happened. So it is, kind of interesting to continue these patients, and I mean they're usually, but the initial apprehension with either injectable or the oral is the same, like about the side effects. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, Ribelsus or oral semaglutide is mainly for the patients who are reluctant for injectables, and there are many patients who wouldn't really go for injectables. But our experience with both diabetes dosing, lower dosing with Ozempic, and higher dosing with Wegovy has been gratifying. It has shown the results, the kind of results we have seen in clinical trials, and because we've been using these for 1 year, we have seen effects on sort of in some way I can say cardiovascular disease, although 1 year is a short time, but we have seen effects on chronic kidney disease, especially in albuminuria reduction. So I would say, yes, I am satisfied. What clinical trials showed and what they promised, we saw that in our own patients.
And what I would like to add is that with Ribelsus, you won't get a very high degree of body weight loss, and you shouldn't be expecting also, because the trial showed about a 4 to 5 kg body weight loss. That's what you expect. But the beauty of this molecule is that you get a fantastic HbA1c reduction if you're able to scale it from 3 to 7 to 14. And even if you are not able to go up to 14, even 7 milligrams dose works fine in a vast majority of our patients. And this drug has actually gotten approval for primary protection. So if you have a patient with a very high risk of ASCVD and still there is no established ASCVD, this oral molecule is a fantastic choice for those patients. In terms of Ozempic, what I would say, because they're injectable, they have what my experience is that they have a little better GI side effect profile compared to Ribelsus, because it goes through the GI tract, probably because of that reason. So little easier to escalate up to 1 milligram, which is equal to 14 milligram of Ribelsus in terms of achieving the plasma concentration. So if you are unable to achieve 14 milligram through the oral route and you need a better HbA1c reduction, so you can switch from 7 milligram of Ribelsus to 1 milligram of Ozempic directly. You can go ahead and do that switch and see how your patients are doing. If you are going for, and again, in the Ozempic also, you see a little better, my experience is a little better weight loss compared to Ribelsus. But the best weight loss actually comes when you are able to escalate to 1.7 or 2.4 of the Wegovy dosing. So there is where you should ideally expect the weight loss to come in a significant manner. So if you're trying to achieve a 10% or more body weight loss, or even more than 15%, so your target should be 1.7 and 2.4 for your obese patients. And but again, it will be a little bit challenge to manage the GI side effects, because as you increase the dose, the GI intolerance also starts increasing. So maybe we need to hold on the patients on 1.7 for a much longer duration of time than the classic 4 weeks period before we shift the patient to a 2.4 milligram dose. So this is my real world take on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. We shouldn't be over enthusiastic. Many a times there are cosmetic reasons also. If one is losing 1 kg per week, that is very good. Many a times, much more than that, leads to skin redundancy and wrinkling. And in our younger patients, that's that's not a good thing. So I think we need to decide the dosage on a case by case basis.
Right.
All right. Okay.
We're done.
So there are two more questions actually. Can semaglutide be used for heart failure with preserved injection fraction? Can you share your experiences?
Yeah, so there is clear data. So step heart failure with preserved ejection fraction and step heart failure with preserved ejection fraction in diabetic patients, that's step HPF DM. So you have clear data, but again, clinical endpoints are not there. So mostly it is functional improvement of these patients. But again, the functional improvement in actual heart failure patients, if you look from the point of view of the heart failure patients, so this matters a lot to them. So if you have better physical limitations come down, and you have a greater sense of improvement, so the patients are very, very satisfied on those areas. The Summit Heart Failure with tirzepatide actually showed a clinical endpoint reduction in terms of heart failure, hospitalization, and a CV death composite. So there is evidence that this group of drugs, the GLP and the GLP-1 RA-based agents, they might have a very good results even in terms of heart failure patients. Specifically, the data is very robust in terms of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And that's what most of the diabetic patients actually suffer from.
Yeah. As of now, that for me, that would be a gray area. And as you rightly said, we don't have clinical hard pointers in step HFpEF. We have increase in physical performances, decrease in physical limitation, and 6-minute walk distances. It became better, but hospitalization for heart failure, there were few cases, and there were more cases in placebo group as compared to semaglutide. But as of now, I think we need more data to really and that trial was done. All patients were obese, so that was usage is to be there in patients with heart failure and obesity, not without that. So probably in time we will be more clear. Earlier, I was little skeptical that they increase heart rate. So how can they be good for heart failure? But there are reasons, and we have seen good positive results in HFpEF. But for clinical heart pointers and clinical heart outcomes, and like hospitalization for heart failure and cardiovascular mortality, I think we will need more data. Tirzepatide has some data, as you said.
Praveen, any
data in the
thoughts,
Summit Heart
any
Failure?
experience?
Yes, and the best part, sir, is that, and madam, is that what I would suggest is that as per the algorithm also, the SGLT2 inhibitor should come much ahead, top number one. And if the patient is not controlled on the SGLT2 inhibitors alone, then instead of a DPP-4 inhibitor, if a patient can afford, then those patients should be receiving GLP-1. Because there is at least data of the functional improvement, though I agree the heart clinical endpoint data with semaglutide is not yet there.
So Dr. Praveen, this question I have for you. So would you use in heart failure with the reduced ejection fraction, HFrEF?
Okay.
There's no data, but what do you feel? What do you instinctively
let me tell you. So those patients who are diabetics and obese and also have heart failure, where they are having raised NT-proBNP levels consistently, and they are receiving 2 or 3 drugs for control of sugar, then it is a very reasonable idea to switch them or add this drug and then subtract one of the other anti-diabetic agents which have no evidence at all or have no role to play in terms of heart failure with reduced ejection fraction vis-a-vis. In these patients, it makes reasonable sense. And of course, we need to have more data on this. But the second group is the heart failure with, reduced ejection fraction, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, HFpEF and HFmrEF. In these patients, this is a very, very difficult disease to treat. And many patients who are hypertensives, who are diabetics, they have this kind of symptomatic issue of breathlessness, which is the way they present to us. And they are also metabolic disturbances they have, like obesity, etc. So these patients, the first agent, as Gaurav already mentioned, is SGLT2 inhibitors, which we so commonly prescribe these days. That's the drug of first choice now, somehow. And now we have another agent which has come up, which is finerenone, which has just been out in the study, showing that addition of finerenone becomes a second-line drug, and then of course the use of GLP-1 RA is the third line right now, I must say. But definitely it makes reasonable sense, because we don't no patient is your trial patient, but definitely we need to kind of keep that in mind when we are treating these patients. So with this, I think I'll have to move on, because there is another, I'm getting calls. So thank you very much for this interesting discussion. I learned a lot. Please carry on. And thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, I had one more question if both of you can answer.
Please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so when patients ask whether all semaglutide options are basically the same, how do you explain the difference in a simple but scientifically accurate way?
Yeah, Dr. Gaurav.
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it properly.
So, when patients ask whether all semaglutide options are basically the same, how do you explain the difference in a simple but scientifically accurate way?
Okay, so yes, so that's a very important question because I use the cafeteria choice for my patients when I am planning for semaglutide. So and even sometimes even if I'm planning for a GLP or a GLP-1 based agent, so I give them all the options. In areas like patients with a cardiovascular disease, the data with semaglutide is overwhelmingly better than tirzepatide, so I would give them the semaglutide option only. But once I've fixed on the semaglutide, then I will give them options of the innovator and or whatever copies are available over there. So, and I tell them the price difference, and I also explain to them that this is the innovator molecule, this is manufactured differently, and this copies are manufactured differently. We don't have enough data because this has gone off patent as of now. And before going off patent, some of them has done some small 24-week phase 3 studies, but longer duration data is unavailable with these agents. And if the patient is comfortable with that and the cost is the primary barrier to go ahead with the innovator molecule, then they will select the copies over the innovator, and then probably I will be prescribing them those, provided we are using that only for blood sugar control and weight management, but not for the organ protections because they haven't got those approvals as of now.
Agree. I fully agree with you. So if my primary reason of using semaglutide is for organ protection, cardiovascular risk reduction, and chronic kidney disease progression reduction, then I think I probably wouldn't give an option of using generic semaglutide. But if the cost is the main factor, I would discuss that. And I fully agree with you, Dr. Gaurav.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, that's all for today, actually.
Yeah. So thank you, ma'am. And I will also take a leave because I have another talk of
Yeah.
Ozempic right
Thank
here
you,
in this hotel where I am right now. So I will move on. So thank you, ma'am.
yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Gaurav, Dr. Richa, and thank you everyone for today's session. Hope you
Thank
have
you
a
very
great
much.
day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.